Hi there, thanks for joining me. This is Jeanette Comerford and this is day 4 of my Christmas series for 2018. Today I'm taking you to the North Pole. So if you watched day 2 of this series, which was called Little Batchwork, you're going to recognize these cute little Santas and reindeers, because in that video I shared how I did batch coloring and batch die cutting of these images and how I stored them for use in a later project, which is now. So if you want to see the coloration of these cute little images, I'm going to leave a link to the video right here at the top of the screen and you can check that out. For today, what we're going to do is we're going to create these cards. So I did pull out another stamp set from Fawn called Snow Day for the little trees, and I'm going to be using also the Mama Elephant Hillside background die, I think it's called. I'll link to it below this video. I'm going to be cutting this out using Bristol Strathmore paper. And the reason I like to use this paper is because I'm going to be doing some ink blending, and I find I get the best results with ink blending if I use this paper. So I'm just going to die cut 3 of these for each of the cards, and I just use my little tweezers here to pull it out of the die. And the way I'm going to ink up each of the little valleys or hills, I guess, of this is I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper and I'm just sort of going to tuck it in to each of the little snowbanks. You can see I'm tucking it in there. I'm going to be taking some distress ink. This is tumbled glass, and I'm going to really softly just brush some ink on the top edge. I'm going to take the paper out and I'm going to replace it on the snowbank above that first one, and I'm just going to carry on just replacing the paper and doing a little bit of ink blending on each of the snowbanks. This way there is a little bit of contrast and you can actually see that they're snowbanks. You could use different colors if you want. If this wasn't a Christmas scene, you certainly could use green to create little grassy mounds. So this die is really versatile. I'm going to be using the Misty here to stamp those little Christmas trees. And I just have a piece of scrap Nina cardstock here. I like to keep all my little scraps so when I'm stamping little images like this, I can use them and then I'm not wasting any of the paper. And I like to use the Misty in case I want to do a double stamp for intensity. So you'll see how I'm going to be stamping them in a little bit here. So I'm going to pull out the die at the same time so that I have that handy. Now you could stamp different sizes of trees, different types of trees. I just thought it would be nice to have the same size trees, and I will be using 2 different ink colors for the cards. So for one of the cards I'm using this sort of bright green color. Now you can see here that I noticed that my paper was moving a little bit, so I just put a piece of Post-it tape there to make sure the paper was secure. And I'm going to be using this bright green ink from Hero Arts. I think it's from Hero Arts, or maybe it's from Simon Says Stamp. I'm not sure. I'll link it at the bottom. And I will be just inking up these trees. Now you can see if I re-stamp that tree and stamp it one more time, you can see how the green is a little bit darker, a little bit more intense. So I like to sort of mix it up on my cards to use one that's more intense and one that's a little bit lighter, and that just adds a little bit of interest to the card. It makes everything a little less matchy-matchy. You can also see that I'm trying to get my money's worth here with the paper, and I'm just sort of rotating the stamp so that I can get more stamped images on that tiny piece of paper. And I think I will do it 2 times and get a more intense color on this one. I'm not cleaning up my stamp at all. I'm going to be switching to another ink now. This is a distress ink think it's called Pine Needles. And it's a much more blue-green color. You're going to see right here. So I knew that the lighter green or the brighter green was going to be totally hidden by this ink. So after I'd inked it a couple of times, I didn't re-ink it. I just placed it on the paper and really pressed down hard. And you can see I got that lighter intensity on that tree, and I really liked that. So you'll see for my cards, I'm going to use one intense tree and one sort of lighter tree. And I really like how that looks. And this way you don't have to buy as many ink pads. You can get different looks with just one ink pad. Now I'm going to take that die and I'm going to die cut all those trees. Sometimes I wish that they would give you like a couple of the same dies in these die sets, because I am going to actually have to die cut each one of these, so it's a lot of passes through my big shot. So you can see I'm just making sure that they're really well lined up, putting that piece of post-it tape there so that it doesn't move, and I will just sort of burn through this and get them all die cut. So here's where I stored my little images. So I pulled a whole bunch of them out, the ones that I thought I was going to use for each of these cards. Each of these cards is a little bit different. I have some top folded cards here with some aqua cardstock. And I'm putting the adhesive right to the card base, and then I'm bringing my little snowbanks to it. And I find that for me anyhow, I have a much better success rate in getting that piece of cardstock on the card straight. So when there is no border to be seen from the card base, I like to do it this way. So I get that nice and secure, and I can start building my little scenes. So for each of the cards, I'm going to have 2 of the trees. I'm going to have a few of the reindeer and just 1 of the Santas, because there's just one Santa, right? I have one of the little flying reindeers up there at the top. You can see him. So it looks like he's sort of taking a practice run before the big day. For this next card, I'll be using some of those blue-green little spruce trees and different stamps, all from the same set. And it was so much fun to sort of mix and match the little stamps and create little scenes. For this one here, I did go and pull out the little sack of toys because I felt that it was not balanced and it needed something else on that edge just to balance the card. Then I'm going to do the third one, and I chose that blue-green color for the trees. Again, I really like that. I did stamp and die cut more trees than I needed, so I'm just going to stick those with the rest of my little Santa images for the next time I need to create a project. Now I'm only creating 3 cards here, but I'm sure you can see that you could create a whole bunch sort of en masse at the same time, because it's just creating little scenes. You're just taking the little stamps and placing them where you think they look pretty, where they look pleasing to the eye, and it's just like very relaxing. And once you have everything sort of laid out, then you can just glue everything down. I am using my Nuvo glue for this. This glue is phenomenal. I have yet to have a clogged applicator with this glue, and I can't say enough about it. It's really a great glue. And I'm using my little sort of tweezers here to make sure that I'm placing these tiny little images exactly where I want them to go. Now, I wanted to create cards. You can see there's a lot of white space on these cards, but I really felt that it was missing something. So I decided I was going to stamp some sentiments on each of the cards. So this is another older Lawn Fawn set. I will link to it at the bottom of the video. I'm pretty sure you can still get it. And they have these beautiful little scripted sentiments. So I'm just lining up the bottom edge of the script with the line on the card, and I'm inking it up with some nice intense red ink. And I think that just really finishes off the card really nicely. Using the red ink ties in with the little hint of red that's on the collars of the reindeer and the red in the Santa suit. And I think it looks really, really nice. I was really happy with how that looked. So I did take that Merry Christmas sentiment stamp. I cleaned it off. I dried it before bringing it to this second card. Because I'm moving it around and shifting it around, I don't want to get stray ink and sort of ruin my card, especially not at this point when it's almost done. Now for the third card, I decided to use the scripted Happy Holidays just to change things up. And I was really happy with how this all looked. Even though I'm using supplies from two different companies, everything just looks really nice together. The last little touch was to add some of these Nouveau, I think it's called Blizzard Snow. It's sort of like stickles, but I like it better actually. So I added that to little areas on the cards, and then they were all done. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe so that you will be notified when my next Christmas video is available. And here are some other cards that you might be interested in.